Hello and welcome to the Suzanne Atwell Show. In this edition, Siesta Key, the #1 beach in America, a reality TV show and a cash cow for the county tourist tax. But there is trouble in paradise, beach renourishment battles, outside developers versus locals, aging infrastructure, traffic jams, and now, to incorporate or not? That is the question. In this episode, the pros and cons, and why we should all be concerned about the economic and environmental trends that are fueling these efforts. Powdery white beaches, blue-green waters, bronzed young bodies. That's the image portrayed on MTV's softcore creation by local personal injury attorney, Ask Gary. Gary has also proposed building a 7-story, 120-room hotel on the Key, which didn't exactly go over well with locals. But Gary's not the only one who wants a piece of the golden goose. Several other developers have pitched the county to change existing building requirements. In all fairness, you can't blame developers and real estate investors. They're just following the money. And when it comes to Sarasota County tourist dollars, Siesta Key is the motherlode. According to the county tax collector's website, in fiscal 2020, the tourist development tax generated slightly more than $21 million. Hotels and motels were the largest category, followed by condos, online, houses, and apartments. So where's the $21 million come from? Approximately 1/3 from the city, 1/3 unincorporated areas, Venice, Longboat, Northport, and the rest is from Siesta Key. And that's just the bedroom tax. According to the Visit Sarasota website, in fiscal 2019, nearly 2.8 million visitors came to Sarasota County, and they spent more than $1.8 billion. Add fears of development, the dredging of Big Pass, and lack of policing public use of private beaches, and you begin to understand why the locals think they can do a better job than the county. We begin with Save Siesta Key, the organization that is leading the effort to incorporate. They have a very ambitious timeline. They face a complex and expensive legal process. But the idea is gaining momentum, and they believe the time is right for incorporation. Welcome, Tracy. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
As you well know, this is not the first go-around for Siesta Key to want to incorporate. Why now?
Sure, you're right about that. This is our third attempt, and what we're hoping to be third is a charm. We did try to incorporate in the 60s. That was before my time. And then again in the 90s, John Davidson, the chairman of our board, headed up the efforts to incorporate in the 90s. Although that effort was unsuccessful, it did bring about the Siesta Key Overlay District, which was an ordinance for zoning and setbacks and things of that nature. Now we find ourselves in a situation where we've had some losses. The Benderson project at 41 and Stickney Point, which is going to increase traffic significantly. The roundabout at Midnight Pass and Beach Road. The city's effort to dredge our Big Pass, which got a lot of uprising out of the community. And now we've got 4 proposed hotels, which are outside the scope of the SCOD district. So all of these things combined really forced us as a community to ask the question, what's next? Does this now set the precedent? Are we going to turn into Clearwater Beach, which is not something that we want in our community?
If this goes through, what are the primary improvements that you want to get done that aren't currently being done in your eyes?
Sure, that's a great question. We're a big portion of the tourist development tax of Sarasota County, a third of that in fact. And we think, given how much we give to the county, that the gateways to our island should be magnificent. When you drive over onto the Key, it should look like something that has been voted the #1 beach in the country several times, right? And it doesn't.
You touched upon this a little bit, but I'd like to know how much the controversy over the development will impact all this.
That's a great question. Incorporation cannot be completed before these hotels might be built. So the coalition is really working, their sole focus is to stop the hotel development. Where our focus is really long-term, theirs is a little bit more short-term, and we support their focus very much. We 100% on board with what they're trying to accomplish.
You have to have a special act by the legislature to finalize this, and at the cost of $250,000.
Well, yes, for phase one.
Phase one.
Phase one, we've already raised $70,000,
Right.
which is really exciting. The feasibility study is $75,000. And we're getting there. We have what we feel to be a lot of support in the community, not only from residents, but from businesses who want a louder voice in the decisions that affect them. We are meeting a deadline that it will set a new standard because of the time frame that we're trying to get this done in. By September 1st, we have to submit our feasibility study. We have to have our charter pretty much written, and we have to be able to show community support. So in that, we do have an attorney who's working with us to help us put things together and get the charter organized. We do have the feasibility, at least the fiscal portion, being completed right now. We are on a timeline to get it done by September 1st. So most importantly, we have a summer local legislature meeting that we have to start, where we have to begin. And then we would go to the state legislature, submit those documents by September 1st. I like to tell people August 28th, so we have a couple of days in between. But once that's submitted, then it would have to pass through the House, through the Senate, or it would have to be rubber stamped by the Senate, and then rubber stamped by the governor, and then it would be kicked back as a special act to Siesta Key, where residents could then vote.
You know, we have a number of incorporated barrier island keys nearby: Longboat, Anna Maria, Holmes Beach. A question: is it reasonable to think that Siesta Key can follow with what they have done? Can you help me talk about how they've done it up there? Why can Siesta follow through?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first, it's important to know that Siesta Key is the largest barrier island in the state of Florida that's not incorporated, and I think that statement alone pretty much speaks volumes. We are looking at a government-light model, so I don't want to compare us to some of the more northern barrier islands. Fort Myers Beach is a really good comparison. From a 30,000 square foot view, it's really outsourcing the services necessary to be a community, so things like police service, fire and emergency, water, trash, things like that could all be outsourced, and that would make our municipality really relatively small. We may need 6 employees, it may be 10. We're looking at a 5-person council, non-paid, elected, not funded by any PACs or anything. You know, really they have to live on the key and be a part of the community.
That's interesting. That flies in the face of some who think that you're creating another bureaucracy, which we do not need.
It's not another layer, it's a replacement to what we already have. A replacement that is local voices making local choices.
Okay, now the public-private beach controversy. How would incorporation affect that?
Sure, that's a great question. There's a lot of issues on Siesta Key that have been challenging. The private public beach, as you mentioned, hotel houses is another big topic of conversation, the roundabout. Our goal in municipality and how we believe that this will affect things like that is having members of our community debate it, talk about it, come up with a solution, as opposed to trying to put blame on the situation. Well, it's this person's fault or it's the county's fault. I think it's important for us to build a community that's looking towards solutions towards things like that and having the community input in those solutions.
Tracy and the Save Siesta Key team make a compelling case for localism and community control. But there are also locals in the community who don't think incorporation is the solution to all their problems. That includes our next guest, a longtime resident, owner of the landmark Siesta Key Resort, and outspoken advocate for property rights and renovation over outside development. Thank you for joining me, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Do you think that incorporation is the way to go?
Not at this point.
Why?
Not at this point. I do know what we currently have is not working, and it's unacceptable. To form another government layer of government to get what we need, I don't know if that's the right answer.
You're not a developer, but you own and operate a hospitality business. You've submitted proposals. How does that make a difference, you versus them?
Yeah, what I'm very nervous of is a privately initiated text amendment came from a property owner on Siesta Key for unlimited mega hotels. What I propose is incentivizing the old existing hotels that are not FEMA compliant, they're not ADA compliant, they're full of functional obsolescence. When they get older, the stores around them change, the neighborhoods around them change. So why are we looking at incentivizing new development when we haven't incentivized the properties that have already had an impact? Take out the old sewage pipes, the old buildings, build new nice hotels where they already exist. That is a smart planning. Redevelopment, I think that we should be looking at that a lot more, and it's more like recycling, but bringing it into today's needs.
Sure. Speaking of recycling, when you look at trends like population growth, water quality, beach erosion, all that, does Incorporation make any difference at all in that?
I don't think so. I mean, we need a regional inlet management plan because you see a lot of erosion. Besides Lido, which is a man-made beach in itself, if you look at Longboat Key and Anna Maria, they're just stealing from each other's sand sources constantly. So we need a regional inlet management plan and look for other sources to nourish these beaches. The issue with Longboat Key and Lido is public beaches because they've been nourished, but no public access. The problem with Siesta is 90% of it is privately owned land with 100% public access. So you're having a lot of conflicts. You wake up in the morning and the beach is trash. It's full of holes during turtle season that were left, tents and chairs and people using the restroom everywhere, and just leaving it a complete mess. And these owners have all the liability as well. That's another thing. If we're incorporated, what side did they go on? Do they want to step on property rights, or do they want to step on things that aren't so comfortable for the public? Well, property rights are always going to win. So why not work with the landowners? Why not go to them and incentivize them? Why aren't they protecting this beautiful resource and avoiding conflicts? Like, it's not a hard process to figure out. It's very, very simple. But I don't know how another layer of government can do that. I mean, why not the government we have just do the right thing?
So the onus is on the county commission.
Absolutely.
What is the bottom line then here for the future of Siesta Key? How do you balance population growth, preservation on this most world-class beautiful beach?
Well, it's very, very simple. You can, first off, they got to get a leader. If there was a good leader that was coming to our meetings, SKA meetings, and those kind of the chamber meetings, getting to know what we need is the first step. But I mean, we don't even have signs on the main bridges in 41 that say public parking is at full capacity. So it's just traffic gridlock keeps coming. My staff can't transverse the beach. Residents can't transverse. Mostly the deputies can't get from one end to the other. So those little things, if my beach, if I was to have tickets to my beach and I was causing a traffic jam that's 5 miles long, they would require me to take measures. They're not taking any measures. So they're just letting people pump on and pump on. That's one thing. The county needs to acquire more beach right now for public use and preservation. Right now they're rated an F by the state of Florida.
What are some of your final thoughts on what you'd like to see happen?
I would love to see our current commission engage us. I mean, the problems that we have are massive. We have 1,000 illegal rentals in the RSF district in neighborhoods, like neighborhood values. And I'm not talking money, but values are being destroyed. And I said to the commission, you have a great ordinance, but you need the mechanism to enforce it. And that's called a registration process, and where you abide by the laws and the rules and the ordinances. They refuse to do it. So now we have 1,000 illegal rentals. We have traffic that's not being controlled. We have beaches that is nothing but conflict. I pay for the village maintenance. They don't even pay for their village maintenance when 1 million people a year come through our village. So it's just sad because the things that could fix, like another one is closing the main beach at 10 o'clock. Well, they leave it open until midnight, so the people drink and party. The local high school kids party there nearly every night. They get drunk, they drive through the village, they drive all over the beach. They cause havoc. So these things aren't hard to fix. We just need engagement in somebody that says, this is our golden goose and we want to protect it because it's morally right and it makes economic sense.
Mike is not alone in his thinking. Expectations are high on both sides, and there is a lot of gray. This is definitely not a black and white matter. Our final guest is a familiar face on our show. He is also very familiar with incorporated barrier islands on the Gulf. He owns businesses on Anna Maria and Longboat Key. He's an advocate for clean water, sustainability, and the preservation of our estuaries. Mr. Ed Childs. Thank you for joining me, Ed.
Thank you, Susan.
It's wonderful to
Pleasure
have
be
you.
here.
You're very familiar, obviously, with living and having businesses on small barrier islands that are incorporated.
I am.
I want to look at the big picture. Let's look at the big picture and be somewhat positive. What is your personal opinion about the idea that Siesta Key is even considering incorporating, and they're moving forward with this? What is your analysis, your opinion on this?
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all about that because, let's look at the dynamic. The dynamic is that we are now, and we have been for the last 20 years facing tremendous growth. And so when that's happening, there's more pressure, there's more people coming out, there's more pressure on infrastructure. And so residents and voters want to have more control. And I think incorporation is a way that gives them more control, right? They have their own city government, they have the ability to create ordinances. They're not at the wishes of the county. So I certainly understand that, and I think it's a logical outgrowth of the fact that we do have so much growth in our area.
Okay, but given that fairly idealistic view of it, there are strong areas of concern: taxes, public services, infrastructure. How is that going to work?
Well, you're going to have another layer of bureaucracy, right? And you're going to have higher taxes. You're going to have a building department now, and you're going to have to figure out how you're going to do your public safety. Are you going to have your own police department? Or are you going to contract with the county? And you're going to have a city administration and all of those things that come with it. So you're going to have to be willing to pay for that.
So you're obviously a respected proponent of sustainability, the environment, on barrier reefs and the Keys. So has incorporation up there with, actually you do have hyper-local representation at times. Has that helped protect the environment up there because you're all small and incorporated and you want to protect the reefs and the Key?
I think it gives you another level, but I don't know that it gets down to the environmental level. So much of that is more macro. It's more about what the state is doing. It's more about what the county is doing. It's more about the growth. What keeps me up at night? Water quality keeps me up at night, right? That tremendous growth we have, and the fact that we haven't done the things that we need to do with advanced wastewater treatment, that people don't get, that a pretty lawn doesn't mean a pretty or a healthy bay, that we don't focus on making our 3 national estuaries. We're the only place in the country that's got 3 national estuaries on our border. This is the largest Gulf in the world. And those 3 national estuaries are under tremendous pressure because they can't keep up anymore with the nutrient loading. And what's coming out of the Gulf, into the Gulf of Mexico from everything east of the Continental Divide, all of that farm belt, all of those nutrients running into our Gulf of Mexico. We're the nursery for the Gulf of Mexico. And
Yeah.
we need to be doing everything we can to supercharge that environment. And I don't see that being an issue that incorporation. I see that being an issue that we are woefully inadequate on the state level and on the county level, on the city level of addressing the problems. And that may mean you've got to do what Sarasota is doing and build more wastewater treatment
Yep.
and put more money into these kind of things. Well, at what price is our future? What is it worth? What's our grandchildren's future worth? I think it's worth everything. And I think if we don't get serious right now with this, that we will rue the day that we let it get past the tipping point, which we may be past right now.
So up in your neck of the woods, what about, doesn't it make sense that there's, that this is a good thing? There's less density, less spill,
Well,
less people maybe? How would that work? I'm trying to get into how it is with your, with Anna Maria, Longboat Key, Holmes Beach.
Well, I think maybe it does and it doesn't. We don't have less people because of incorporation. What we have is a 7.5 mile barrier island with 3 cities and all kind of duplication. Now, one city would be fine, but that will never happen because no city is going to give up its identity.
Right, exactly. That's true. Development's a big issue with the Siesta Key folks. They do not trust the conservative county commission. So has incorporation somewhat preserved Old Florida, if you want to call it Old Florida? The local charm of Anna Maria, I hear that all the time, how charming Anna Maria is. And Longboat Key is different, but does that work into that?
I think local governments can do that to a point. But where the rubber meets the road there is the kind of development that the business people want to do, good development or bad development, right? There are both kinds. And we did Pine Avenue in Anna Maria, for instance. You know, there was the little Main Street. City Pier's built in 1911. The bathhouse where the sandbar sits now is built in 1913. And that was Main Street, and it really never happened. And we saw that we were going to lose our little Main Street. It was only 2% of the whole city of Anna Maria is residential office retail, where you could have a business district. We didn't want more commercial property, but we didn't want to lose the ability to have the most important thread that weaves through the fabric of a community. If you're going to be a community or a village or a town, you have to have a business component. We voted with our pocketbooks. We bought property and we created the greenest business district and buildings and that had been done in the city, because we knew that somebody was going to do it. And you were going to do it the right way, that kind of showed what your values are, that was green by development, that was no asphalt, no pavement, that reflected the charm of Anna Maria, 2 stories instead of 3, because that reflected the low-rise nature. I think that's the critical agreement. I don't think you can legislate that or regulate that. I think that's got to come from people doing things the right way.
So what about the balance of trade? How much taxes are generated by Anna Maria for Manatee County? How's that going to work as Siesta Key looks at this?
Well, Manatee County, it benefits greatly. You know, the goose is the beaches, right? That's why people come to this area. Now, everything else is important too, but that's what kind of underpins the quality of life that we have here, and that's why the environment out there and what we're doing, and you know what happens now with our national estuaries and our coastal resilience is so critical, Susan.
Right. It's interesting, you all the issues with the Australian pines. I walk Coquina Beach all the time. That, and also you're having parking wars now. How does that go into this? What I just keep reading about the kind of some infighting with the commission. And
no question about it, and it is a issue that's has been raised because what's going on in Holmes Beach and the elimination. You know, it's going to be interesting to see how it's playing out. You're seeing a butting of heads now between, because Holmes Beach is not an island into itself.
No.
You know, Holmes Beach, are they going to develop their own school? Are they going to develop their own sewer system? Are they going to develop their own water system?
Those are the questions.
They depend on the county for all of that. And I don't think that you can say that the county The citizens of the county, the residents of the county, don't have the right to come out and use these beaches. Now they're saying, well, we're not stopping them from using the beaches. Well, you're making it damn tough.
Exactly, exactly. Finally, as you look at the future from Southwest Gulf, from Tampa Bay all the way to Charlotte Harbor, is local incorporation a better balance between inevitable population growth and ultimately quality of life? How would you sum all that up?
You know, I don't think it is, that's the linchpin.
Okay.
I think the linchpin is that we need to have a groundswell that comes from the general population, that comes from the kids that are going to get the bill from this, right? I'm going to be gone by the time that these things really manifest themselves. But they're the ones that are going to have to deal with this. And they're the ones that need to get up and start banging on the table and saying, what are you doing about the fact that we are not honoring our environment, this precious environment that's the reason we are here, that is the underpinning of the whole state economy.
Sure.
Florida's economy is on the coast. If you lose that, if you damage that, then you're doing great damage to the whole state economy, and you won't have money for education or public safety or health care or all of those things. You're not going to have that resiliency. And that's why we need to move, and it needs to be from the ground up, because it's not going to come from the top down.
Sure. Thank you, Ed, for your insight and your honesty. This is the point in the show when we do a brief commentary, but the question of whether Siesta Key should incorporate is not black and white. More local control and community influence is a good thing, but there will be a cost. There are also expectations that exceed the scope of incorporated governance. So, what's the bottom line? Number one, protect and preserve the Gulf and the beaches. If we fail, the game's over. Number two, smart growth management that includes population, buildings, roads, all of it. And number three, incorporate if you like Siesta Key, but don't do so thinking it's going to solve all your problems. Regional cooperation, strategic partnerships, and core values that serve the common good are the answer. If you would like more information on incorporation efforts for Siesta Key and the issues covered in this episode, visit these links. And you can always see this show and all of our previous shows on Facebook, YouTube, and my website. That wraps up another one. Hope you learned something and enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm Suzanne Atwell, and I'll see you around town.